Hi, I'm Brandon Dorr, Creativity and Media Innovation Reporter at Ad Age. Welcome to another edition of the Marketer's Brief podcast, our weekly discussion of news and trends that have the industry buzzing. In this episode, we're joined by Catherine Ferdin, Chief Marketing Officer at Cash App. We discuss how the brand is continuing to position itself as an all-in-one financial solution with a recent campaign launched earlier this month starring Timothée Chalamet. We also talk about the brand's affinity for running ads in movie theaters and what it would take for the Block-owned brand to appoint its first agency of record. Here's the conversation with Catherine. Catherine Ferdin, welcome to the Marketer's Brief podcast.
Hey, Brandon, thank you so much for having me. It's great to be here.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining us. I want to start by talking about your time at Cash App. I know you've been at Cash App for a pretty long time now. How long have you been with the company for?
Yeah, so I've been at Cash App for over 10 years. And before that, I was actually a part of the Square team, which is the sort of parent company from which Cash App sprouted from. So yeah, it's been over a decade and it's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, quite a long time. And you've been CMO for a little over a year and a half now. I'm wondering if you could tell me a little bit about how this year has gone so far, and maybe what are some of the ways that this year has been different so far from last year in terms of your priorities, your approach, your focus. Has anything changed, I guess, in the almost 2 years since you've been in the CMO seat?
Yeah, it's been awesome. It's been a great 2 years. And we've obviously built a huge global team, which includes not just Cash App, but also the Afterpay global brand. And it's been a real honor to be leading it. I started the company pretty early, as I mentioned, when Square had less than 100 employees. And I did a bunch of different things during that early period. And I gravitated always towards marketing, communications, and brand. And once that Square ecosystem began to stabilize, I saw that Cash App was sort of the clear hyper growth segment of the business. So I raised my hand to join the Cash App team. And I was the only person dedicated to marketing in that business unit for some time. But I can definitely tell you stories about the early days and how scrappy things were. I'd say we are a well-oiled machine now with a marketing team of about over 100 employees just dedicated to Cash App and Afterpay. So it's really been a period of scaling for us.
Yeah, and I think you see that maturity come through in some of the work that you put out. I know somewhat recently, earlier this month, you guys just released some work starring Timothée Chalamet. I saw it was pretty well covered. Congratulations on that. Maybe we can spend some time talking about that work that you just released. I saw it was pretty artistic. Can we maybe start by talking about the creative direction of that work and what you guys were hoping to accomplish through it?
Yeah, absolutely. So believe it or not, Timothy reached out to Cash App first. So he had actually shared that he caught one of our past campaigns, which was another short film that we had created while watching TV in his hotel room. And he was really moved by it. And this is a spot that I've actually spoken to you about before, Brandon, where we worked with Kendrick Lamar and his creative collective with Dave Free, known as PG Lang. They are a common partner of Cash App, and we absolutely love working with them. And this spot specifically starred Kendrick alongside Ray Dalio and Xavier TV. And it was really designed to spark conversation about money among really different communities, right? And that piece itself was super artful, a very brand forward piece. And we were really thrilled that it caught the eye of a great young artist like Timothée Chalamet among, many, many millions of other people. So we started collaborating earlier this year with Timothy on what we could do specifically bespoke with him that could help bring a shared vision between both Timothy and Cash App to life too. And that's kind of where the impetus for all this started.
That is really interesting. Was this the balcony spot that Timothée Chalamet saw?
Exactly. It was the balcony spot. And as you might recall, balcony was sort of the first in that series. And we did balcony act 2 with additional partners that we had rolled through into the starring spot. So working with PG Lang, just at the end of last year in 2024 in December, we launched additional sort of balcony vignettes starring Doechii and another starring Angel Reese, which we're very, very proud of.
For the folks that maybe haven't seen the ad yet, I saw it all over the place, so I think most people listening probably have seen it at this point. But for the folks who haven't, could you explain just a little bit what the spot is? And it's about 2 minutes, tends to be a little bit longer, like how you guys like to usually approach your ads. But yeah, maybe just break it down a little bit for some of the folks who might not have seen it yet.
Yeah, absolutely. And hopefully anyone who's listening can give it a watch on YouTube. But Timothy, who plays himself in the ad, In it, he really kind of visits a produce store selling rare vegetables where he learns that the shop owner only accepts super unconventional forms of payment, including things like salts and iron ingots and cowrie shells. And he gets really interested in buying a rare fruit in the store and unknowingly sort of sparks a conversation about the future of money and technology between the father, who is the shopkeeper, and his teenage son nearby. Timothy really acts as sort of this like conveyor between the two and overarchingly helps anchor this short film as a quiet meditation on the changing nature of technology and how finances can really be a stressful and overwhelming topic that often divides us, especially between generations. I'd say the piece also hits home on that awkwardness and sometimes shame that often results from talking about money and highlights the difficulties of really changing old habits, especially when one is set in their ways. But if we embrace the future together, new technologies like Cash App can actually work to bring us closer. And we see that with the father and the son in the film alongside Timmy.
You mentioned that the spot is addressing sometimes the generational divides in terms of how different generations think about finances. When you think about the target audience for this work, who is, I guess, the generation or audience you have in mind? I know Cash App is generally tends to be associated with younger generations, but curious, yeah, with who you're trying to reach with this work.
Yeah, so the majority of our customers really tend to sit in the Gen Z and millennial demographic age wise. And we thought that tied in perfectly with whom Timmy resonates most prominently with. So that's who we're going after with this spot.
Can you talk a little bit about Timothy's role in this work? I understood that it was a little bit more collaborative. Like you said, he reached out to you initially for the idea. Can you talk about maybe working with him on this spot?
Yeah, it was a pleasure to work with him on this. I mean, he was involved in every aspect of the creative as a true creative partner here, everything from concepting to script ideation, even to directorial selection. And it really keeps in line with the philosophy that we have at Cash App, where we seek out partners who have a personal connection to our brand and are passionate about financial access and inclusion themselves, right? So, in the past year alone, both in front of and behind the camera, we've strategically partnered with several influential and culturally relevant artists, athletes, gamers, creators with their own engaged fan bases to make sure that we're really bringing that kind of artistic vision to life. And so, even in the case of Timothy, we're really not just signing on talent as mere brand ambassadors. We're teaming up with them as true partners and creative collaborators to give them a stage to share stories that spark a connection from their fans all the way to our customers, right? And in that way, we're really trying to generate conversation around generational gaps as we do with this short film.
Can you talk a little bit more about your approach to landing on the right talent for a spot? Because these are right, these are longer spots where they could be several minutes, up to several minutes, and there's some actual acting, right? This is not a 30-second spot where the talent has to pretty quickly get into talking about the product and promoting the product. Like you guys, there's some room and some air for the talent to actually act and have a performance in some of these shorter films. So I imagine that finding the right talent for this work is maybe a little bit more important for you guys than a brand that is trying to find a celebrity for a 30-second spot. How do you go about finding the right talent for an ad? I know you guys have not always just worked with celebrities. I think I covered in March, you worked with TikTok creator Leo Gonzalez on a campaign about banking features. So there seems to be some variety in terms of who you guys work with too. I guess break down that approach a little bit more for me.
Yeah, definitely. So I think a large part of our marketing efforts are to really meet our customers and non-customers, or you might say potential customers who are predominantly Gen Z and millennials, where they are in culture, right? So that means that with our go-to-market approach, we aim to make the Cash App brand and our products synonymous with our customers' everyday lifestyles. And a part of this work is definitely accomplished through the strategic brand partnerships that you're touching on. And in this case, our latest campaign with Timothy, it's collaborating with culturally relevant talent to produce super engaging creative work that we know will resonate with mainstream audiences. And we're thrilled to be seeing that already. We're also always seeking partners who really do have that personal connection to Cash App, just as Timothy did when he was sort of moved by one of our prior campaigns to the point where he reached out to us. And I'd say that meaningful and collaborative talent partnerships have long been at the heart of our entire marketing strategy at Cash App. So we have this history of really trying to keep our ear to the ground and identify influential people in their respective fields, whether that be sports or music or fashion or gaming and more, and really finding creative ways to build bespoke marketing campaigns with those partners and not just merely casting them in predetermined ads or campaigns. So we're continuing to do that. And obviously, all the spotlight right now is on Timothy, and we're super proud of that. But we are really proud to boast, a pretty incredible roster of past Cash App partners and current partners that includes musical artists, everyone from, Sabrina Carpenter and Kendrick Lamar and The Weeknd to pretty notable fashion designers like Luar and Kalina Strada, and even professional athletes like Max Verstappen, Aaron Rodgers, Odell Beckham Jr., and Serena Williams. So it's very much a part of our strategy to generate broad brand awareness and cultural relevance with our core demographics.
Can you talk about the media strategy? I know there were some pretty interesting placements this ran in theaters. Can you talk about the rollout?
Yeah, definitely. So this specific spot, we took a pretty non-traditional approach in that we rolled this out almost as a teaser ahead of a broad release where you could see this special spot in movie theaters across the United States airing before the massive summer blockbuster hit Superman. And we're also airing this ahead of the Fantastic Four First Steps movie, which will be coming out. And we employed this really non-traditional media buy across cinema intentionally, very intentionally, to drive organic buzz and discovery amongst the millions of moviegoers that we know are hitting theaters this summer, inclusive of Gen Z and millennials, teens and parents, and their families, to really intentionally stoke interest and curiosity by showing up in those unexpected formats, right? So last week, we actually did publish the official short film across all of Cash App's branded official social media accounts, and you probably saw it on Timothy's own as well. But over the weekend, we also engaged directly with Timothy's fans on social media, surprising select individuals with $25 deposits to go see the movie directly with funds that we put into their Cash Apps and giving them the opportunity to actually catch the commercial spot in theaters for themselves firsthand. And this was a really exciting, fun way to surprise and delight our customer base. If you even just do like a quick cursory search of platforms like X or Reddit, you'll see a ton of people still almost taking to those platforms to express their own kind of shock and surprise that they think they just saw a Cash App commercial starring Timothée Chalamet and trying to sort of unpack that for themselves, which was very much a part of our intended sort of approach to build intrigue for this entire campaign.
This is not your guys' first time running ads in theaters too, right?
We have done it before, and we actually did do it with that campaign, The Balcony, that we partnered on with PG Lang and Kendrick Lamar and Dave Free. So yeah, we've seen success with this in the past, which was the reason we had a lot of confidence to proceed here.
Is there anything like uniquely beneficial about running ads in a theater?
I'd say one thing is that you have a really captive audience. And that's a little bit unbeatable in an age of sort of like app and smartphone proliferation where people are constantly getting notifications and constantly getting distracted, if you will. And so I think having a captive audience sitting front row seat in the theater really ensures that you're going to have their attention. And I think that's why we saw such a wide public reaction to this going live in theaters first. We did our first cinematic run, I think, as early as 2022, thanks to our really strategic in-house media buying team here at Cash App in partnership with a few external partners who helped us pull it off. But that was part of it. There was also sort of the rationale that we knew that Superman and this upcoming Fantastic Four, they're going to be major blockbusters of the summer, and we're already seeing that. And we also know that families tend to go to the movies together. So that was a great way for us to reach different generations sitting all in one place and hopefully spark those conversations in the theater or after the theater, making sure that we are making that connection point.
How often, I guess, are you coming? Is the media strategy usually coming after you guys come up with a creative idea, or how often are you coming up with you want to run ads in a particular place and then the idea follows that? I guess I'm just curious which one usually comes first for you guys.
I actually think these things go hand in hand, especially with this release. We kind of knew that this was going to be a really artful approach from the moment that we started working with Timothée. And so I'd say we acknowledge that this long cut form, the full 2 minutes, it's a super art forward, intriguing piece of brand work that in a lot of ways demands the full screen, lean in nature of the cinema, which made it a perfect fit for our media strategy rollout, starting with going live in theaters.
You mentioned that you guys did a lot of this work in-house. Who were some of the agencies that you partnered with on this campaign?
Yeah, we have an absolutely incredible in-house marketing and creative team that helped bring this to life. But we also partnered with Object and Animal as the production company for this film. They were incredible. And Timothée also enlisted his close collaborators, Aidan Zamiri and Elijah Bynum, to write and direct the film. So it was a true collaborative effort, but I definitely want to give credit to the in-house team here at Cash App that really took on this gargantuan effort and brought it to life in a matter of mere months, which was pretty impressive.
And from my understanding, you guys don't have a dedicated agency of record, right? You tend to switch partners between campaigns fairly often.
That's right. We do not have an agency of record. We work with a wide roster of agencies and production companies and talent. But again, yeah, for this piece, we were really pumped to work with Object and Animal as the production partner for the film. And then, of course, Aiden and Elijah to write and direct the film.
Can I ask generally why you guys prefer that method? Is an AOR something you guys have ever considered doing, or like what are the benefits of operating as you are that you're continuing to work that way?
I think we're certainly open to it. There are definitely some collaborators who we keep going back to time and again. At this point, we've worked with PG Lang many, many times in various formats, whether it be short film, brand campaign work, or even doing interesting sort of ventures on social. They've been incredible partners to us over the last 3.5 years. But in general, we also like to take this approach to keep variety in our work and making sure that nothing from Cash App ever feels too predictable, which is the benefit there. And then also just the mere fact that we have an incredibly talented creative team in-house that helps bring all of this to life. And that's why we take this approach.
Is there anything an agency would need to do, I guess, to win that business? I'm imagining agency listeners right now, like at their whiteboards, like drawing up, the schematics as they're listening to this. I'm just curious if there's anything that you would look for to potentially bring on an agency in like a permanent capacity, or not permanent, but agency of record capacity.
Never say never. This is not a general policy that we have. We just haven't had one yet to date. And I think we've been really, really happy with the sort of caliber of work that we've been putting out using this method. So I'd say it's a bit of an approach of if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
I also wanted to ask, looking back at the campaign, I think the last time that I personally covered a campaign that you guys did, it was focused on positioning Cash App and its broader suite of banking features and tools. I know there is a mention of banking in this campaign, but it's a little bit more focused, it seems like, on payments. Would you call that, I guess, is there a switch in strategy going on in this campaign?
Yeah, we're generally focused on really building trust and awareness. And that has been the single threaded sort of underlying approach that we've used for the past couple years. We also are pretty focused on shifting perceptions towards Cash App being an all-in-one financial solution. And you saw that in our campaign work earlier in 2025, but we're really continuing to map marketing efforts towards increasing engagement with our core customer base. We currently have 57 million monthly actives, which is pretty hearty. And we're also focused on expanding that network too. So that is inclusive of all our existing customers and also the audiences of teens, parents, and families as customers. And so in a lot of ways, we're really just trying to make sure that people look at Cash App as something broader than merely just a P2P service. And I think that comes across in this campaign as well. I think we ultimately want this short film to help shift the perception that Cash App is merely just designed for peer-to-peer transactions, right? We want to shift that perception and enforce that we're an easy-to-use, trusted platform that can manage your full finances, and also that Cash App is really more than just paying someone back for dinner, right? Customers can manage their entire financial lives on Cash App. And this brand awareness campaign aims to open the door to that concept.
All right, cool. Catherine, I think that is all we have time for. Thank you so much for joining us here on the Marketer's Brief.
Awesome. Thank you, Brandon.
That was Catherine Ferdin, Chief Marketing Officer at Cash App. I'm Brandon Dorr, creativity and media innovation reporter at Ad Age. I'd like to thank our producer, Lauren Chiardio, and invite you to subscribe to the Marketer's Brief podcast, wherever you get your podcasts. We promise we'll keep it brief.
Marketer's Brief listeners get $40 off an adage.com subscription. Sharpen your marketing edge and visit adage.com/brief for your discount.